We're going to go ahead and get started. Everything sounding okay out there? All right, sort of. All right, welcome everybody. Nice to see a good crowd. So thank you all. I've seen several people I think have their first meeting in a while, so it's nice to see everybody. You know, Mike Jones hasn't been here in 3 months. He walked in and we gave him a job to do. So, you know, that's what happens when you show up. So thank you for showing up and thank you for volunteering. Do we have any first-time guests tonight? Yes, awesome. Stand up, name, date of birth. Michelle, great to have you. Any another first-time guest? All right. What's your name? Mike, great to have you. All right, any new members, anybody who's joined tonight for the first time? There you go, awesome. Thanks for joining. Fantastic. Well, my name's Cal. I'm now serving my duty as the president, so I get a chance to get up here and talk to you all. I've kidded around, and I'm not really that kidding. I've always said my major initiative as president is to make meetings go fast, and starting off 7 minutes late is not per my agenda, so appreciate your patience. Typically, technical stuff is, I really appreciate Chris and all the work he does. The technical stuff is definitely beyond me. I'm much more comfortable with a chisel in my hand. Typically, we go down through the officers' reports. I don't have anything special tonight. I know that Vice President Mike McCauley is not here, so we're going to buzz through him. He's out injured. David Roth, anything you need to announce tonight? Okay, nothing to add. Gary has nothing to add. We are still able to pay our bills, which is always a good thing. Gary's our treasurer. Chuck Saunders is in the back. He's got a handful of things to sell, some great deals. What are the highlights? Have you sold that router table yet? Jessamine router table, top. Jessamine router table top. I can just repeat what you're saying. Delta 8-inch joiner. That's awesome. Well, there's some good stuff back there. Yeah, so there's some great deals back there. I got my bandsaw. It was one that was the guild was getting rid of years ago, and then Chuck got on me because it was still in the shop 4 months later. So going down the list, so communications. I know Brian is out sick. I talked to Ron. Ron Haw is here. Great job on the newsletter once again, Ron. I would say this is our weekly or a monthly appeal. If you have an article that you're thinking about writing, or you're working on something interesting, or you may not even think it's interesting, but I bet we would. If you're working on something and you feel like you could put a few paragraphs together, we'd love to see it. So please feel free to submit articles to Ron. You could get a hold of him at newsletter at kcwoodworkers.com. I may have messed up that address, but you all know what to do. Don's got magazines as usual. Anything other for the library, Don?
No, not tonight.
Okay, magazines and books. Those are amazing resources. I don't know if you saw. I remember driving all over the place trying to find resources when my dad was a professional woodworker. So it's amazing what we have available these days. As far as communications, check us out on Facebook. There's a Facebook page, and then there's a Facebook group. There's usually some pretty good chatter going on, and members give good feedback on where to get supplies or how to approach certain problems. So I appreciate that, and whoever is able to look at that and contribute, that'd be awesome. We also have an Instagram page and Twitter, and then YouTube. We upload our videos from our podcasts and our meetings and our skill builders. So we have some pretty good library of videos out on YouTube on the Woodworkers Guild channel. Kevin, do you want to talk about the podcast? Let's see if that mic is working.
Is this one working? Can you hear me? How about this one? Okay. If you haven't watched the podcast, why not? We're available both on YouTube and on Spotify. We're waiting. Hopefully, it'll be uploaded by the end of the week. Our latest episode with the new format with Mike Jones and Grace Ambrose along. And then we'll be recording another one this weekend. And we need you to subscribe and comment and like and all that good stuff, because like I said in my article in the newsletter, the more people that subscribe, the better our chances are of making a little bit of money off of this for the guild. So, what's that? Oh yeah, ring the bell so you know that it's there's something new posted.
And as far as like, in addition to potentially ever making money, it's just nice to get awareness out to kind of show the community what we have, and we get more members down, and we all help contribute to each other. So there's good material out there, so check it out. You want to talk about training while you're up?
While I'm up here, training. We have one space available in the intermediate woodworking class that starts in September. And we've got lots of openings in the David Abeel Windsor Chair class coming up and also in September. We're working on the toy classes coming up, and we'll have two versions of that, one in November and another one in December. Plus, we'll be helping Santa out also, so that's about it right now.
All right, thanks, Kevin.
Questions?
Check out the classes out there, guys and gals. It's usually our classes fill up fast, so I think there's a few openings out there now, so it might be a good chance for you to jump in and grab one. Chris McCauley in events and AV, YouTube.
Yep. Check. Oh, so here, check. All right. Guys, bear with me tonight. I am dealing with some audio issues. So hopefully we're getting that squared away for everyone watching online. I'm working on it. Hopefully you can hear this. For AV, I do need some help. Some of the stuff I need help with is running cameras and helping me with editing and stuff. But I also need stuff as simple as typing up descriptions for the podcast and for skill builders and for the meetings, so we can get some descriptions there so you can search for what you're looking for. So that's a job that you can actually do from your own home. That would really help me out. That stuff takes a lot of time. Sorry, Kevin. Going into events, we have a lot of events coming up this fall. We are going to be doing L&K has invited us back out for another mill and grill. We did that before, but we will, let's see if I can pull it up here, doing three things at once. So in the newsletter, we do have an article coming up on October 22nd at 11 a.m. We can meet here at the shop if you want to carpool. If not, I will get directions out to those. There'll be a sign-up coming for that here soon. But we're doing a mill and grill where we're doing a toy collection for their foundation that they work with, doing a toy drive. Larry will be doing demos on the mill. He'll have wood for sale. and Cammie makes a really good lunch. If you guys didn't go to that one last time. And then coming up in November, we have Santa's Workshop. If you have kids or grandkids, this is an awesome chance for them to come into the shop. It'll be November 19th and 20th here in the shop. So the shop is closed that weekend. But you can come down here and volunteer. We're going to be needing volunteers to help run the stations. Basically, the kids start at the front door, go through a safety check, and then they go through and they grab a block of wood, and they go through every station handing it to a volunteer who makes a different cut or a drill, and then they assemble them in the hand tool room. They get to actually assemble a toy truck, and then Santa inspects it. And you can take photos with Santa, and then having Santa's Christmas mart out here in the lobby, and Craig wants to talk about that because he's heading up my volunteers for that.
Okay, so what Chris tasked me with is heading up the vendors section of this, and we'll only have about 15 to 16 vendors depending on their table size. The tables for each day are $10 for the small tables or $15 for the large tables, and that's per day. Included with that will also be a little meal ticket, so whether we are serving hot dogs or pizza, sodas and chips and stuff like that, you'll get a relief so that you can go back and eat if you want to take a break from your booth for a while.
It might be worth a table just to get the meal.
Yeah, it might be. I found out after trying to work with the city on what kind of health permit issues we need. If we're giving it away or asking for a donation, they're not too sure if they need to come out and do the health thing. But if we're selling it, they will come out and do the health thing. Make sure that we've got the wash station and all that handy. They also asked if we were collecting sales tax from our vendors. And I'm like, oh, shit. Oops, sorry. And so got a hold of the state office, and they directed me to their webpage, of course, which was a little help. But because of our small event, we may not qualify for the dollar amount because we're not selling thousands and thousands of dollars. But I do know if you sell over $600 worth of stuff at this, you have to, if you live in Missouri, you'll have to include that in your Missouri tax. If you live in Kansas, like I do, I will have to file a Missouri return. Yeah, so it's, and also those have to be done 3 to 4 weeks before the event starts. So we'll have to have our tables sold by mid-October in order to get that done. Another thing I want to do, there's back over here we're going to do some lasering on the trucks that the kids make. We're also going to have a booth for guild-made items. So whether that's like the little hammer blocks, if you remember those from last year, Dan, you remember those, don't you? Dan and I were pulling our hair out by the end of the weekend. And also, I'd like to have a spot if a person, a guild member, has just one item. Maybe their rough to ready box. Well, I don't really need this box. Put it over here, put $5 on it. You get $5 out of the deal. If one of our members makes a lot of cutting boards, and he said, yeah, I can put a couple of cutting boards in there. Not enough for him to have a whole table, but he can just put a couple over there on that table. And so he gets all the amount that he puts on that. Also, something that the carving show used to do was to have, if you've got any excess tools at home, how many of you have too many tools at home? See, nobody
Not enough.
Not enough tools. We can put stuff like, what if Chuck doesn't sell that stuff back there on the back, or if you've got some small hand tools that aren't doing you any good, you can bring them over here. We'll put a little tag on it with your name and the dollar amount. The dollar amount goes into the envelope and is handed to you at the end of the show. So that's a great idea. I know a good one when I steal it. So, but we'll try to get the information up online here pretty quick as far as the sign up genius so that you can pay. All of the booths will have electricity. So we're going to try to put more booths over here and a couple more out here in the middle as well. But it'll be fun. I know The turners will be right over here so they can catch kids as they come out the door, give them a top. So we'll have fun with it. So if you have any questions, if you're interested in being an exhibitor, come see me. I'll be back over here in the corner at the break. Thanks, Cal.
Awesome. Going down the agenda, Jim, anything to talk about tonight? I know we're still kind of holding it that just under 900 members. 889. Programs, Matt, I know we have Fred tonight. Do you have any other announcements to talk about programs?
No, I'm really looking forward to Fred because he also told me he does know how to do the human body, so I could eventually attach a human body to a head. So that'd be really great. Next month is what, September?
Correct.
Right. Okay. So David Abeel will be here with Windsor Chairs, and I'm really hoping that he's going to give a program that Wednesday night. I say hoping because I don't have any complete confirmation yet that he'll do that. But we also have a lot of interest from the guy that runs Taylor Toolworks. He's one of our major supporters, and he wants to give a program. In fact, he wants to do podcasts. He wants to do a podcast as well. More than likely, I'll probably have Taylor come up here and do a program in October. I'm just going to really just hope that David Abeel is going to be here that Wednesday night and talk about Windsor Chairs and such. Speaking of Missouri, I live in Kansas, and when I did the wood show, the carving show, I found out we sold some stuff and we tried to pay our tax for Missouri, and they refused to accept it. I said, wow. It says, you're over a certain age and you don't make more than 50% of your income from what you do as a hobby. Therefore, we refuse to accept your taxes. And in fact, you don't even have to collect any taxes. And they gave me a certificate. I literally have a certificate that I could post on my booth that I do not collect sales tax in Missouri. So if you're over a certain age, and I don't know what that age is for sure, I think it's 65. I think it's 65, but that's something to look at if you're concerned about paying Missouri tax or even cutting Missouri sales tax.
Appreciate that. Is safety committee or safety team, is Steve here tonight? Don't think I've seen Steve. And Dwayne sponsorship, I know Dwayne has items for the raffle, so hit him up. You got some good stuff down there. Also, we've got shirts. And I don't want to forget, if you're buying things on Amazon, which almost all of us are, go to smile.amazon.com and put Kansas City Woodworkers Guild as your charitable organization. Doesn't cost anything extra, but Amazon does that. And I got a notice today. I think we've been doing this for a couple of years now, but the guild has made about $1,100 in a couple of years, maybe 3 years. Most of that came from Gary, Gary's wife. That's probably all about all we have for all the leadership in the committees. Now we have a time where we talk about our SIGs, which is our special interest groups, to talk about what's going on. The first, wood carving. Anything to discuss about wood carving? Okay. Since you don't have a microphone, I'm going to repeat that. It's fourth Tuesday of every month, and you can come. Go ahead, Dan.
It's the fourth Tuesday of every month.
I don't think that microphone's working. It is? Never mind, it is.
Okay. It's right in that room right there. You can just bring whatever you want to bring. We do traditional and power carving.
Switch out to that one.
Okay. How's this? Okay, now we got it. Okay.
Let's retire the orange one.
Okay. It is the fourth Tuesday of every month. And
No, it's not online. That's what I got to worry about. Give me that.
Okay. Okay. One more time. It's the fourth Tuesday of every month. We meet over here and we do pyrography, power carving, and traditional carving. If you need help with anything, come and see us. And we have tools.
Thank you, Dan, for the fourth time. Scroll saw sig. George, you want to talk about scroll sawing? John's usually our man, but we're passing this over to pass the baton to George.
Okay, the scroll saw sig in September we have a class we have an advanced class that is on the 10th and the 17th, which with a Wednesday between them is our normal sig meeting. I will be opening up the scroll saw area at 5 o'clock for anybody that wants to come and do some scroll sawing. If people like doing it, I can do that on a more regular basis. I'd like to come down here and help people, and we meet the second Wednesday of every month. So.
Awesome. Thanks, George. Is this coming out? Yep. All right, great. Our other SIGs, we have a couple more. Hand tool SIG, I don't think Rob is here. Any announcements for the hand tool SIG? It's fourth Sunday of every month at 2 p.m. Laser engraver SIG, I know Curtis is here. Curtis, anything you want to announce? Come on up, or we'll get you a microphone.
Well, just a couple of things. Mike wanted me to mention that he's done a lot of work on a checklist that is now on the website. It's downloadable. It's downloadable on the website, and so if you need a checklist for the laser use, you can go in there and download it yourself, have it for your own. He's also got a nice plaque on the wall now with the instructions on it as well. And then we meet a week from tonight at 7 o'clock. We're not scheduling any training, but if you want to be trained, just show up at the SIG, and after the SIG, we'll stay and train you. Okay?
Awesome, thank you. Last one is CNC. Gary, do you have anything to talk about CNC-wise? The CNC SIG meets the third Tuesday of every month at 6:30.
And that gives you an opportunity to come here 2 days in a row, because our general meeting is the day after that. Our meeting is probably more interesting, so if you want to really come to a good meeting, come on down. If you're interested in the CNC, we usually try to have some kind of a discussion on what the different members are doing, and there's some that just are doing some really outstanding things on the CNC. So if you're at all interested, come on down. We welcome you all.
I don't know if I should take this personally. He said you're more interesting. Well, personally, I will take it personally. That is everything that we have on the just sort of the administrative part of the agenda. Now we get to the highlight. We have some great show and tell items. Mr. Bainey, come on up, and if you have show and tell items, go ahead and get over by your item, and let's see the projects. Come on up, Jim.
Chris, you want to bring that photo up? So I had back surgery a couple of weeks ago, and they put those clamps in, and I went to the doc on Monday to get my driving privileges back, and he showed me this picture. I said, damn, I said, I had a couple of them in the shop you could have used. So now I got probably 205 clamps, and now I got 207, so. Anyway, so I'm on the mend, and I'm glad I did it. I'm an old paratrooper, so I'm healing pretty fast. I've had a lot of practice. Okay, who wants? John?
haven't brought anything for quite some time here. He's like, I think everybody's got a shooting board, and we remodeled, and I came up with this piece of corian. I thought, it'd make a good shooting board. So I built this the other day, tuned up my number 5 bedrock, and I think they work good, but the problem is it took me a while to dial the plane in to really work. It's got a hawk blade in it. I took the blade out, touched up the sharpening on it, and the chip breaker, I didn't realize this, but the Hawk's chip breaker is sharpened to a knife point too, and I touched it and cut myself. I'm going, oh crap, that thing is really sharp. And that's just the chip breaker. So it works pretty good. Where's my screwdriver? It cuts straight, but it's pretty tight here. So I have to cheat and do that. And this will pop on there. I can cut some miters, and it just goes on as a jam fit. And it's tight enough that you have to pry it to get it going. It may loosen up, I'm not sure, but it's pretty useful. Like I say, it's out of my cutoff bin. So that's been that's pretty handy. That works pretty good. These are commercially available. I'm sure everybody in the world's got some of those aluminum ones they use, and I've got these on. I made a bunch of these, and they go on, my drill press table. I've got some on my board that I taper with. I usually taper and straighten at the same time. These are not, everybody says, what the heck is that? Well, I used these the other day. I rebuilt a antique file, and it came out to be, squeezed it together, it was a little tighter than it originally was, so I wasn't sure if the drawers were going to fit, which they didn't. So you can reach back there and get a dimension, tighten that up, and then you know what size drawer. If you've got a drawer or something you want to insert in, you can get an inside measurement. You can check for square, all kinds of stuff. They're not fancy, they're just something I wanted to do, and they come apart, and they got a little piece of brass shim stock. Thumb screws just threaded into the wood. Drill the hole and cut the rest of it out with a chisel. It's got a little piece of shim stock to keep this from digging into the wood. And I wanted to make them nice, so I rubbed them down with Danish oil, and then they stuck together, so I took that all off. So don't do that. They work better when they're dusty. And stuff in my shop is usually pretty dusty. This I made during COVID, and it's something that Paul Sellers had a YouTube video on. That's a piece of hedge from tree trim from my backyard. You can see the difference where it's been exposed to light and where it's been up in the hammer. This is kind of interesting. This is kind of a story to this, but it might bore everybody. I don't know if you know how an elevator works. It's just generally a box with people in it. At the top it has guide shoes. At the bottom it has guide shoes. It runs up and down that shaft on rails, look like railroad rails. The old ones, they're like in downtown. The rails aren't steel; they're made out of maple. So this is out of elevator down there that crashed. So we got we got some nice maple out of it. They used to sell these all milled up at Shuey Lumber to the correct dimensions that they needed. And then they ran out of that hard maple and they started selling them out of oak. And the elevator guys just pitched a fit. They hated that oak because it was splintery, you know. So watched Power Sellers and made that. It works pretty good. That's about it.
Anybody got any questions about it? Cal, have you ever seen wood elevator rails? I've been in the trade for
Have you not?
40 years and I've never seen it. No.
The elevator runs up and down. It's got shoes that ride on the rails. These are in the rails, and then once a month the guy comes and gets on top of it, and his partner gets down below. It's usually the helper. And he drives it up and down. The guy slathers these wooden rails with grease. Keeps them greased up.
And they grease the wood as well?
Yeah, they grease this wood really good, slathered up. And they have, the top of the elevator car's got a rope that goes over a pulley, goes down to the pit. There's a pulley there, comes to the bottom of the car. Up in the top, there's a, what do you call it, a governor. If the governor goes too fast, it jerks the rope. It's got these cams that dig into the rails, and that's the brake. And it really tears the rails up. And I worked at a place downtown. They had a kid like to put all of the, I worked for a print shop, and he'd put all the paper on there he could get at one time because he didn't want to make a whole bunch of trips. He crashed that thing every month. So we had a lot of that.
Good. Any questions? Thanks for the history lesson on elevators.
Well, you go down to the next drive up on the end. It used to be Dover Elevator, and I worked for them when my kids were little. And we put the elevators in at KU Med, Children's Mercy.
With wood rails? Or with steel rails?
Steel
Okay.
rails.
Yeah. All right.
Steel rails. And do you know what? They're heavy.
Yeah.
And let's see, we put a tube down in General Motors. And then one of the ones that's interesting, this is probably boring you guys, but one of the ones that was real interesting was the Parmalee Plastics building that made safety glasses. It's down there on 17th and Grand. And the old elevators had these big DC motors, gear-driven jobs, and they're on a shaft, and the bearings are Babbitt.
Wow.
So one summer they had 2 mechanics and 2 helpers, and I was one of the helpers, and we were up in that little penthouse on the roof, and we were pouring a Babbitt bearing, and believe me, it was hot. All that steel has to be heated to a certain degree before you can pour that Babbitt, or it'll pull back. And I think we poured it 3 times.
All right. Any questions about the history of elevators?
Woodworking. Well, it was a fun job. It was challenging. It was fun.
Okay. Good. Thanks, sir.
This is heavy, too.
Not from you, Mike.
Here you go, George.
Hello. This is another puzzle that I've made. It had its challenges because the board is longer than the throat on a scroll saw. So what I ended up having to do is when I got close to the end, I leave the blade in the board, disconnect it, turn it around, and basically I was pulling the board out of the scroll saw instead of pushing it into the scroll saw. And it's a whole different image when you're looking from the back on that thing.
Ever try that with a table saw?
No, just the radial arms. One thing that is interesting about it is that right here is the eye hole in the mother dinosaur. And by accident, the hole is right where there was a dark spot.
So she's got a black eye.
Well, with 3 kids, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions?
Questions about George's dinosaur. How long did it take you to do this?
I probably took about 12 hours of cutting,
Okay.
and then another 6 to 7 hours of sanding. So it took a little bit, but it was fun to do.
Okay.
What size blade, George?
I used a number 5
For the whole thing?
for the whole thing.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah.
I noticed you called that a Mallosaurus. Is that a technical? I noticed you called that a Mallosaurus.
Yeah.
Is that a technical term, or is that dinosaur happen to be ill?
That is a name that was in the book that I got the pattern out of.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Very good.
I'm Russ Amos. This is Michelle Beck. She's a potential new member, and I wanted to introduce her and let her show one of her projects she's done.
So I'm novice, but I've recently gotten into the live-edged river kind of pours, so I've made a little charcuterie board here, cutting board if you will, out of maple, and I use some red epoxy through the center of it.
So, okay. You get to answer more questions
Okay,
about
that's
this,
just
all
fine.
right? Okay, so you how did you create the swirl with the epoxy?
I use multiple colors.
Okay.
So
obviously, but
I
how did you?
I don't know if you've ever seen those the acrylic paint pours where you layer it up in the cup, or you do just little bits at a time and layer it, and then I just take like a knife or a screwdriver and swirl it through it when it's liquid.
Okay, this dark edge right here, is that bark?
No, I stripped the bark off, all the soft bark off of it. That's just part of the wood. I got that from a friend many years ago.
Okay. So, how long did it take to set this up?
It takes about 24 hours to hard cure it before you can sand it. You have about 30 to 40 minutes of working time with the epoxy before it starts to harden.
Okay. And did you put a finish on the rest of the wood?
Just a cutting board oil.
Okay. So, you got plans to do any of this in the future?
Yeah, I've made a few boards. In fact, I'm working on a Chiefs colored one for a charity auction here in Christmas.
Okay. Are you going to incorporate this in any furniture?
Yeah, I've actually made a couple tables out of it, and I did a flood pour. I built us a new kitchen island. I sunk some old cookbooks from the 60s in it, and then in between some boards, and set it with epoxy, and then did a flood pour over it, so it's got a glossy, smooth finish on top.
Okay, so you're really into pouring epoxy?
Yeah, I just kind of fell in love with it. It's kind of fun.
Okay.
So.
How many people here have experimented with epoxy, pouring epoxy?
You learn real quick that if you don't cover every single hole, you're going to find it.
Yeah, it's got the viscosity of water. When
oh, yes. Oh, yes.
if there's a hole in it, it's going to find it. Or
Yes.
if it's out of level.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yep. Leveling it is very important.
That's really a unique pattern.
Yeah, each one's different. You never really know how it's going to turn out until you're done.
Dave Roth and I worked on a project, a waterfall table, And before I cut the miter in it, I poured the whole thing, and I wanted it 2 colors of blue, and one dark and one regular blue, and the dark overtook the regular blue to the point where it was a waste of time.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot of trial and error on these. You just never know how they're going to turn out.
Especially if you're going to mix colors.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay, any questions about this? Yes, Scott?
So you mix multiple colors, then you made multiple pours of different colors?
Well, I mix up one batch of the epoxy, and then for that, you usually do a double pour to mix it, or a double mix. So when I transfer it to do the double mix, I mix it in different cups, so I'll have like 5 different colors. That's when I add my mica powder. I pour it all at once, but I do it in layers. And if you do, depending on if you do lines versus circles, you can get different patterns in it.
Yeah, the back has got a different pattern
Yeah,
almost
so-
to the front.
Yeah, the back side was what was laying down flat, and then the other side was what was on top, yeah.
So, how did you go through the sanding process?
Well, I've got a belt sander, so,
You used a belt sander on this?
yeah, I take it from a 40 grit up to a 1,000 grit.
On a belt sander?
Well, after a certain point, I switched to just sandpaper.
Okay.
So,
Have any problems with the sanding?
it just takes a lot of patience.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things I've found is
The lines in it, yeah, and that
well,
epoxy.
this is a lot harder than the wood,
Uh-huh.
you know, and so the wood will sand down and you'll have a ridge across it.
Yeah, a lot of trial and error. You just gotta take your time. And then if you get grooves in this, you have to take it back up, down a grit, and sand those out, and then keep on going. Yeah,
Okay.
takes a lot of
Any
patience.
other questions?
Yeah, Jim. When you had the multiple colors that you were pouring, how did you do to back up a moment? Normally, you have to do some heating of it to drive the bubbles out of the epoxy.
If it's under about an inch or so, I just take it slow. I mean, I use that full 30 minutes to work with it, and as I go, if I see bubbles arise, I'll take a heat gun to it and pop them out.
Got it. So you were doing the heat gun
Yes,
after each
yeah,
pour to get it out in the
Yeah,
step.
you have about 30 minutes to work, and then I usually watch it for 30 minutes after till it's tacky to where you can't pop the bubbles anymore. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Any particular brand of epoxy that you use for this?
No, I just usually find what I can buy for a while in COVID. It was hard to find.
Okay. You bought it online?
Yeah, online, or I'll find it at Joann's or any craft store. Usually I'll have some. I found the best value is to buy them in gallon sizes. That's about as big as I can find at a time.
Yes, sir.
I want to know where she bought it at.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. You can buy it on Amazon. They do sell it on Amazon.
Did you have a question? Okay.
I'd just like to say that there's a art supply store that also has artists and craftsmen supply near downtown.
Oh, yeah.
They have, I believe the ink colors.
Oh, the mica powders? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the powders and stuff like that also.
Woodcraft has a pretty good supply of it, as well as Rockler has a pretty good supply, and they have the colors to go along with it. If anybody's got a lot of really good questions, where's Dave Roth? Ask him.
You could use a lot to color this. I've colored it with acrylic paint before, too. Yeah, it comes out more of a matte solid. It's not that iridescent finish.
Okay. Any other ones? Thank you. Thanks for
Thank you.
coming up here the first time. Yeah.
Jim,
Yeah.
just on the topic, in this month's newsletter
Yeah.
are the guidelines for working with epoxy in the shop here. Everyone take a moment to read that before you do something that goes horribly, horribly wrong. It'll be
Okay.
horribly, horribly wrong for someone.
All right. Any Billy?
worry, I'll go fast. Okay, good evening, everyone. Just a couple of hand tool restorations. The short story behind the Stanley number 8, and I think you all know, just finding a Stanley number 8 for any kind of a price that you can afford is lucky. But it was pretty sad. It had a lot of rust, but no serious pitting, but it was pretty beat up, and the lever cap screw was a bolt, so I knew it wasn't original, and I was a little bit worried about that, but I was able to find a panhead Allen wrench screw, panhead Allen wrench screw for the lever cap, and that worked out good. And the plane iron was bent and worn down, so I did order a new Hawk plane iron. The Japanning, I didn't paint it. This is all the original Japanning, but the technique I use to clean them all up is a little bit of soap and water initially to get the first layer of grime off, and then I just find a stick, smash up the end, really wrap a piece of wire around the smashed up part, and take rubbing compound of 2 different degrees to just clean that Japanning off real good, and then just coats of wax. And I'm a big fan of the T9 bow shield. It's a I don't know, kind of like WD-40, it's just a rust preventer. That's the word I was looking for. T9 bow shield. $30 a can, but I love this stuff.
You know, that stuff was made by Boeing,
Yeah,
invented by Boeing
the
for,
read-up, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
It's a great product. I'll sing its praises every day. The next one, kind of a fun little find, was this G.W. Bradley, B-R-A-D-D-L-Y, draw knife. I found at Columbus, Ohio, when we go out to Camp Kane to do warfighter exercises. There's this great big antique mall out there that has nothing but antique hand tools. And I found this one. It was just so fun because the washers he used to secure the tangs on the handle are Indian head pennies dated 1859 and 1863. So I just had to have it. About the only thing I did for the restoration, just buffing number 4 steel wool on the handles and ferrules, a little bit coarser on the draw knife itself, and I'm still scratching my head. I've tried to get the edge I want on it, and it's still not quite there, so I'll take any advice some of the masters may have. The ferrules were a little loose, so I just took another draw knife, shaved a very thin wedge, and just a tiny bit of glue and smashed it in there, and that kept the ferrules tightened up nice. And finally, go ahead. Yeah. And finally, this was my, when I was a kid up in Nebraska City, by God, Nebraska, my grandpa had his little shop. I never knew him. He died when I was 1.5 years old, but he had his great big black traditional wooden woodworkers toolbox, and that, to me, that was a treasure chest. And I remember going in there for years and years, just looking at his hand saws, hand planes, everything else that was in there. And this was one of his chisels, mortising chisel, and this was the original handle on it. And you can see he got his dollar's worth out of it. There's a couple square nails in there where he secured the ferrule, and that's the original ferrule, and it was all mushroomed over. I don't know what he was using, but he sure did get his dollar worth out of it. The socket was loose, beat up. The 25 degrees is what it's supposed to be at. That's what it's at now, but when I started, it was more like 45 degrees. So I had to get it back down. Bought me a chisel guide and a double course diamond honing stone. And I'll be damned if that did, how fast that was able to cut. I was impressed. It cut it down pretty fast and without too much elbow grease, but it did take a while. I was concerned about getting the steel too hot on a grinding wheel, so that's why I went manual on that, and then just the various stages of grits down to a 2000 on the bevel. And the fun thing about it too, I left some of my restorations, I like to take it all down, but I left the patina. I did brush it up a little bit with 4/0 steel wool. And the other interesting thing is you can see the laminate of the tool steel behind the rest of the steel. And there's a warranted cast steel stamped in it. I didn't find any cartouche on it, so dating it or manufacture of it, I don't know. But again, if any of the masters out here have any estimate of how old that wood or manufacture, I'd listen. And I've used the microplanes, the stainless steel ones, you see on the cooking shows. They work good for woodworking too, but I don't know, what kind of a wood file is that?
It's a rasp.
Rasp. These work, I became a believer that get a much better control and evenness when I was tapering the socket, or tapering the tenon for the handle.
This is called a scrub rasp, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I was impressed, and I got one that's not as coarse as this as well, but I became a believer in its versatility and to do things more accurate and cleanly than the microplanes.
Everybody got any questions about what Bill's done? I'm always impressed with your restoration projects.
Thank you. It's an obsession. I gotta seek counseling somewhere.
You're in the right place. Any questions? Very good.
Thanks, guys.
That it? I think so.
All right, great projects. Thanks, everybody. And if you have something you're working on next month, bring it in. We'd love to see it. Now we're going to take a 8-minute break. So if you grab something, grab a snack or a refreshment, and we'll meet back in just a few minutes, so 8 minutes. Also, go down and buy your raffle tickets. So we'll do a raffle right as we come back from the break.
Hi, my name is Mike Jones, and welcome to another episode of the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild's ongoing series of machine safety videos. Today's video will introduce you to the safety rules and requirements of the Powermatic hollow chisel mortiser. Keep in mind that, like all safety videos, this video only covers the safety concerns of this machine and is not a complete training program for the use of this equipment. When in the shop, please direct any questions about using this or other machines to the on-duty shop foreman. He or she is there to act as your main resource in helping you to keep safe and provide advice in assisting you to successfully complete your project. Always remember, the most important of safety concerns is to wear approved safety glasses with side shields at all times while in the KCWG shop. Your regular glasses are not approved for use when participating in any shop activity while you are at the guild. Hollow chisel mortisers are used to cut square or rectangular holes in wood, generally for the mortise side of a mortise and tenon joint. The hollow chisel mortiser is equipped with a square chisel with a rotating auger bit within the chisel that serves to remove large amounts of material while the chisel cuts a square or rectangular hole, leaving the square corners and smooth walls of the mortise. Hollow chisel mortisers are similar to a drill press in that the mortiser combines the square chisel with the rotating drill bit in the center. The bit inside the chisel clears out most of the material while the chisel ensures that the hole is clean, square, and smooth inside. When using the hollow chisel mortiser, one must first install the proper size chisel. The Kansas City Woodworkers Guild has a selection of mortising chisels sized from 1/4 inch to 3/4 inch. The mounting of the chisel and bit requires that you mount the chisel into the collet while inserting the bit shank into the chuck. The chuck is identical to one used in a drill press. It is best to use a piece of scrap stock to hold the chisel and bit in place while you tighten the chuck with the available chuck key. Once the bit is securely mounted in the chuck, you then loosen the collet, holding the chisel, and raise the chisel about 1/16 of an inch, and then retighten the collet screw. It is recommended that you then turn the chuck by hand one complete turn to ensure that nothing is binding. There are stop screws that allow you to set limits on the side-to-side and front-to-back travel of the bed. If you're not familiar with the setup procedure, please ask the foreman on duty to help you with this procedure. It's very important to remember to have your stock securely clamped into position before turning on the machine and cutting your mortises. When cutting through mortises, please be sure to have a piece of sacrifice material under your work so that you don't risk cutting into the machine bed. Another important thing to remember when using the hollow chisel mortiser is at the position of the waste port on the chisel. You will want to mount the chisel so that the waste port is leaving the waste behind in the previously cut hole. This helps to allow the waste material to not build up inside the chisel and generate friction heat, which will dull the chisel and the bit prematurely. Please ask the shop foreman for assistance if you're not sure how to set this up. It is also a really good idea to check the chisel and bit for sharpness before you start. A dull chisel can make things a lot more difficult and affect the quality of your mortise. Please ask the foreman to help you with sharpening the chisel if you're not familiar with how to do it. When you start the machine, be sure to never touch the chisel with the bit spinning. You should never allow your hands or fingers to be closer than 3 inches from the chisel when cutting your mortise. The auger is exposed on the side of the chisel where the waste port is located and can cause severe injury should you touch it. Remember, when cutting your mortises, the bit and chisel, ideally, should be fully engaged. Cut your first hole, then move the bed about 2/3 the size of the next hole to make the next cut. This puts less strain on the bit and eliminates the deflection of the chisel and bit and the high level of heat that can be generated by the deflection. Following this procedure will produce a cleaner cut and more professional looking results. Also, never try to hand hold the piece you're cutting. Your stock should be firmly clamped in the machine before you turn the mortiser on. Remember, the successful use of the hollow chisel mortiser is very dependent upon a good setup, especially when performing several repeat cuts on table or chair legs. When you're finished, you should take a few moments to check your work area, clean up the machine and the floor around where you've been working. This is Mike Jones. Thanks for watching.
is 636. The last three numbers for the push stick is 622. The last three numbers for the saw stop hat is 600. The last three numbers for the leather that can be used for making belts is 630. The last three numbers for the bench cookies is 615. The last three numbers for the 1, 2, 3 blocks are 638. And the last three numbers for the router fluting jig, I think, is 601. If we called your number, please come collect these, because if not, they're coming back into the cabinet.
All right, guys, hopefully you learned something, whether you did or you didn't. Let's dive in the seat, wrap up the conversations. Fred has put a lot of effort into coming and presenting with us tonight, so I want to make sure we sit and give him a chance to talk. So wrap it up and find your seats. All right, well, we're going to get started with our program. I'm seeing some of your work up here, Fred. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you have to show us. Carving is an amazing craft. There's so many different ways to go about it, whether it's traditional for furniture or bird carving, and I'm looking forward to it. Some of this drawing reminds me of a lot of the stuff I used to draw quite a bit when I was like in high school. So without further ado, Fred, come on and show us what you do. Thanks for coming.
Okay, I'm not an art teacher and I'm not an artist, but I'm a wood carver. So I'm going to show you some different points on these pictures so you can open it. A head is 5 eyes wide. Okay, we're going to start with the eyes. I drew a line down and I drew a line across. So I'm going to use this eraser for my space. Your eyes are located in your head about halfway up. A lot of people find that hard to believe. They can't hardly talk. They find that hard to believe, but most of your face is in the bottom half of your head. So we'll start out here. All noses don't look the same. Some people have a real wide nose. Some people have a nose that's like a knife blade. So I'm just going to go in and do this about average. Okay, we're going to do the eyelid now. Your eyelid, when it closes, it overlaps the bottom eyelid. The edge of your mouth comes down from your eye. Your smile line. Can everybody see what I'm doing?
Yep.
Okay, that's your smile line. Some have a chin. Okay, we're gonna make an Indian tonight for a simple reason. I don't like to carve ears. To make a good looking ear when you're carving is hard, especially when you're a man. The standard man is 7.5 heads high. They figure him 7.5 heads high. So if you carve a 7.5 inch figure, you only got an inch head. So you got a very small ear, and to make this ear look good, it's pretty tricky.
So Fred, give us a little background of what you're doing there. So you're drawing this in preparations for you're talking about general skills as how to draw. So
No, I'm not so much skilled about drawing. I want to be able to see what I'm going to carve.
Okay, so
To
you're
carve
developing
well,
a
you
drawing
got
that
to be
you're
able
gonna
to
carve.
see it. And sometimes drawing it helps me see it. So we're going to.
And are these going to be carved in the round or in relief or whichever?
Well, a lot of times I carve a bust, get the head, the neck, and maybe a little ways into the shoulder, showing shoulder. Carving and drawing is not equal on both sides. Some sides, the one side is harder to do than the other side. Okay, here's. Okay, here's his brow.
Fred, how long have you been carving?
Since I was 62. That'd be about 18 years.
What brought you about to give it a try?
I was building muzzleloading rifles, and you have to carve the back on the butt there. And I was having some difficulty, and the guy says, "Well, come over and carve with us, guys, and we'll help you set that in there." So I did. And then I started carving different things.
What kind of pencils do you use?
The best that Walmart's got. I just get regular pencils because I'm not going to. Make a shadow here that tells you that your face is going back. When you're looking at a face, it's narrower up here and it goes back. About where your ears are is about as wide as it's going to get. And when you're looking at the side, the front of your ear is about halfway. The head is deeper front to back than it is side to side. Halfway point on a man standing is his crotch. That's halfway. From his shoulder, no, from his hip socket down to his knee, that's halfway, and from his knee down to the ground is halfway.
Now, those proportions, Fred, did you learn those from someone who taught you, or did you kind of develop those as you've been carving?
Well, they're in a lot of different books. Art books aren't. They're in a lot of different books. But if you get your proportions wrong when you're carving, it's hard to come back from it. Well, that's looking pretty rough. This part right here of your face kind of follows the curve of your mouth, of your teeth. Not all the way, because the teeth turn back in, but the front of it is curved. Your mouth is curved. The smile line goes back into the face.
So in general, Fred, how much attention and how much detail will you take your drawing before you start to actually carve something?
Well, it depends how big a deal how big a carving I'm going to make. If you're going to carve, if you're only making a guy 7, 8, 10 inches high, you're not going to make a big head. So you can't put a whole lot of detail into him. If you carve Santa Clauses, you got the beard there to take care of a lot of it. And then you got long hair in the back and down the side. The nose is what can get you sometimes. On a Native American, an Indian, the forehead goes back when you're carving that. His forehead will go back and his chin will come down. There's a big difference in different races, in different cultures.
Do you stick to realistic carving, or do you ever go into, caricature?
I don't make fun of Indians. The only characters that I like to do is Santa Clauses. An Indian also has a broader face on the average. Nowadays, you got Indians are mixed bloods, but the old full bloods had a wider face, like the Comanche, the Apache. You look at pictures of them, and when you look at the pictures of people, you got to look at this picture real close and see if it's a straight-on shot, or whoever took the picture is pointed up a little bit. And if he's pointed up a little bit, it'll make it from the eye to the chin look longer. And of course, if he's going the other way, make the forehead look longer.
Have you ever thought about teaching an art class?
Nope, I'm not a teacher.
Have you always liked to draw, or is this something you picked up at when you started carving?
Oh, I always drew a little bit, different things. Usually when I'm going to make something, I make a lot of different things. And sometimes I'll have to draw it all out to see how it's going to look. Like if I'm going to make a knife or something, I want to draw it out. So I get the size and how big the handle's going to be and what shape the blade's going to be. So I draw out a lot of stuff. It keeps you from doing a lot of stuff over. That's about as far as I can go with that. But the main thing shit. Now, if I was going to do a portrait or something, I'd draw these two lines, okay? And I'd take a picture of what I'm going to draw. and I blow it up as big as I can. And then I take a pair of dividers, okay, and I draw the same lines on this picture. Okay, so I draw a line down through the nose, and then I draw one across through the eyes. And then when I was going to do it on paper, I would measure this thing with a set of dividers. I can get it pretty close that way. But this is what I got tonight. Any questions?
When you first started laying that out, you did the head height. When you first started laying that out, you did the head height and then got halfway for the eyes.
No, when I laid it out, I went down and I went across, and I laid out the eyes first.
Okay, and the eyes were in the group
eyes,
of 5?
The eyes are 5 wide, 5 eyes wide. Okay. See, your face don't end right here. It gets wider back here. See, your face is actually about like so. This part right here comes way in. So what I'm doing is just doing an indication here of what I want to do right here. But, got any more questions? What do you say?
Fred, you said a man's head is 5 eyes wide, and you said a man's head is 5 eyes wide, and he stands 7.5 heads high. And what are those proportions for a woman?
About the same. Some books will tell you that a woman stands 6.5 heads high. But then another book will tell you 7.5 wide. The longer your neck is on a person, the smaller the head is. So I don't know about the 7.5 heads all the time. But your crotch is your halfway point. Your arm here comes just about down to your bottom of your ribs there.
So maybe I missed it. What determines the width and the length? You said the eyes are halfway up. You know, you start with your cross.
Yeah.
And you put your eyes on the cross. But what determines, you said the head is 5 eyes wide?
That's the standard, yeah.
Okay, and then, so what, the length, what's the ratio, what do you use to determine the ratio of the head itself?
Okay. On some cultures, they have a real wide head, okay? And not too high. So they'll have like a 4-3. 3 wide and 4 high. And in some cultures, they'll have a real long head. You guys ever watch 41 News? Look at his head, the guy that does the weather. He's got a long head. I mean, he's got a long forehead.
Of course, he didn't have any hair.
He don't have any hair either. Look yourself in the mirror tonight and then measure once. Your head's about halfway. Anything else?
Fred, when you have a good drawing, kind of walk through the next steps. How are you going to go about getting a carving started? Are you going to do any modeling, like in clay, or are you going to just start
No,
cutting?
I'm just going to start carving it. I'm going to lay it out, figure out where my eyes are, figure out where the top of the head is, and figure out where the chin is.
Do you cut like a blank out with like a bandsaw or anything like that?
Well, sometimes I do, and sometimes I buy rough outs if I get a real nice rough out. But if you do Indians and stuff, you stay away from the deer. I have carved deers, and I don't like it.
What type of wood do you like to use?
Basswood. No, I use traditional. If you're gonna work wood, work wood. If you're gonna carve, carve.
Do you have like a method of clamping your blank?
Yes, I have a swivel vise that I use, and then I can take that vise off and put a plate on there and come up underneath my block and screw it to that piece there, and that swivel vise will let me go down, sideways, or whatever I want to do.
When you say traditional, are you doing like?
I'm using chisels, gouges, knives. I don't use power tools. Well,
Use a mallet?
I might rough it out with a bandsaw. If I got a big block or something, I might rough it out with a bandsaw.
Have you ever thought or have tried digital art?
Have I ever tried what?
Digital art.
Digital art, meaning computer images.
No. No. I don't even have an email. And I don't have a cell phone. I'm about traditional.
Okay, what about your surface prep? Are you leaving right off the knife? Do you do any sort of smoothing? How do you carry it to the finish?
Well, sometimes when I'm carving something there, I'll leave, you can tell that I did it with a knife or a chisel or something. There'll be little flats in there. And then I paint it. I generally paint everything. I got one carving that I like real well that I did pretty good on. It's just varnished, stained and varnished, and the rest of them I like to paint them. Paint them, to me, kind of brings them out, brings them to life a little bit. You can shade them and just all kinds of things there. It takes me a while to paint them till I'm satisfied with them.
What's the largest carving you've done?
Oh, I did a cowboy with a hat about so big. And then I've got a carousel horse. He's about so long, but he's not finished. He's been in process for many years. He just got slid under the bench.
I don't have any projects like that. That's not true.
If you're going to do something well, you're going to have to like it. And that carousel horse, after a while, I didn't like him. But I carved some stuff in relief, and then I carved some stuff in round. I like to carve Santa Clauses. For one thing, you got a big beard that you can work with, and you do all kinds of colors. In the United States, they got the red Santa Claus, but Europeans got them in all kinds of colors.
So when you're doing hair, do you like model it with like bigger gouges and then cut the texture with like a?
I go in it with a gouge, maybe so wide, and then I'll come back with a V tool and do it in V tool. And when I paint it, I'll paint the bottom. I'll paint the first layer, not the bottom, the first layer, a darker color. And then I'll come over it with like, Santa Claus is usually gray, so I go gray.
Anybody else have any questions for Fred? What's the thing you enjoy the most out of carving? What kind of gets you excited about carving?
Stress relief. I got a disabled boy at home. It is very stressful. And you get down where you in your little carving area, and you're carving, you got the radio on, it all just kind of melts away. That's why I like hand tools.
All right, well, thanks, Fred. Appreciate that.
Well, I hope this is what you wanted.
Well, you know you get the, you've been here enough, you know you get one of these prizes for helping us out, and that's, you get the mug shot. So thank you so much for helping us out.
Thank
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
You guys should come up and check out some of his carvings or his drawings. It's
This
some
here-
cool stuff. So
this took a little longer than this right here.
yeah, that's amazing for doing it in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So, all right, everyone, thanks for being here. It was fun seeing everybody. Feel free to hang out and talk and help us clean up and et cetera. Y'all have a great night.